Welcome to CS Week Success Stories, second Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern webinar series. These webinars are the top-rated workshops from our attendees for Conference 38 held last May in San Antonio. I am John Sild, and I'm with CS Week. I'll be your moderator today. Denise Mullendor will be our host. CS Week and Conference 39 will be April 27th through May 1st, 2015 at the lovely Charlotte Convention Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. This program will be recorded and available for playback along with other archived presentations. You can find it under our Educational Venues Second Tuesday webinars. Attendees are encouraged to upload questions in the Q&A panel on the lower right of your screen. Be sure to click the All tab to make sure that I will see your question. We will wait until the end of the presentation to answer questions. Today's program, The Golden Rule Brings ComEd Closer to the Gold Standard, presented by Diana Sharpe, Premier Customer Experience Manager with ComEd. Diana Sharpe currently serves as ComEd's Principal Project Manager for the direction of ComEd's Customer Experience Initiative and for driving cultural change throughout the company. Previously, she was also the Social Media Manager for ComEd and has managed the communications strategy for ComEd's call center and served the call center as the liaison to ComEd and Exelon Corporation communications team. Diana has more than 10 years of experience in communications, public relations, and journalism. She is experienced with the utility, nonprofit, and government industries as well. We welcome Diana to you this morning, and thank you for joining us. And I'm going to pass the ball to you, Diana.
Thanks so much, John. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here and glad you could join us for today's presentation. Today, I will be talking about ComEd's Premier Customer Experience Initiative. And really, for us, the Premier Customer Experience is helping us to reach first quartile in customer satisfaction, but it's also helping us to really change the way that we think about our customers internally and the way that we focus on our customers when we are developing initiatives or changing processes. And so we'll talk a little bit about the history on how we got through the Premier Customer Experience Initiative, how we set it up coming from 2012, and then I'll show you a little bit about where we are today in terms of our standings and some of the things that we're working on. So I'm going to jump right in. From a historical perspective, ComEd began our Premier Customer Experience Initiative, as I mentioned, in 2012. Before that, we were looking at things that we could do to enhance the customer experience, and we had put together a few programs. But in 2012 is when it really became a strategic initiative for us under our CEO. And so we developed metrics around it. We put together process teams and journey teams, which I'll talk a little bit about, to really look at that experience from a holistic perspective. Prior to 2012, we really looked at the customer operations organization and the company in a meter-to-market fashion. And so we were very focused on reducing our operational costs, making sure that we were very good stewards of our customers' money, and from a financial perspective that we were operating as a very efficient company. But what we realized is that in doing so, we started to lose sight of the end product or the customer. You know, we weren't really developing processes that were very customer-friendly or that put ourselves in the customer's shoes. We saw this really start to play out in 2011. So we were hit with the largest storm that our operating centers had seen ever, and we had almost 900,000 customers out of power. And as a result, we got hit from our legislators, from our municipalities, as well as from our customers, wondering what is ComEd doing and why did it take so long to restore power? Why wasn't there great communication around the outages? From a utility standpoint, we actually did very well in restoring the power. We had everyone up within about 6 days, and for such a large storm that was that was really good timing from our metrics. But from the customer standpoint, all they saw was that they weren't getting communication and that they were out of power for maybe 6 days. And so our leadership team went on basically a road show to all of the municipalities across our territory to explain what was ComEd doing to improve and how we were going to get better. From a J.D. Power standpoint, we also saw the effect of that storm. So in 2012, when their results were released, we were dead last in the Midwest Large segment rankings. We came in at 579, and we had a number of points before even the next company that was ranked, as you can see here, at 606. And so when we started to look at even the categories within J.D. Power, you know, our job as a utility was to, one, keep the lights on and to provide customer service. And in those two categories, we were 63 points below average and 77 points below average, respectively. And so that was a huge telltale sign for us that we needed to change the way that we were thinking and change our business model. So we developed what we call our North Star, and I always tell folks this is kind of your grandma's, you know, motto. This is what your mom taught you, your grandmother taught you. Treat every customer and every interaction in the same manner in which you would expect to be treated. That's really the golden rule, and we've heard it before, but we've usually applied it in our personal lives, but here we're trying to apply it in a business sense. And so with that North Star, we put objectives around it. So one of the big objectives is improving to first quartile within the J.D. Power survey, and then also achieving first quartile in our customer service performance levels. And one of the things that people tend to ask us, both internally and externally, is why J.D. Power? Why pick that survey when it's something that we don't really have a lot of say-so over? We can't mold the questions. But for us, J.D. Power is, one, an independent survey, it's a public survey, and it's a perception survey. So it really can start to gauge from the customer perspective if we're moving the needle at all, if we're doing better from the customer's point of view. And because it is a public survey, you know, it's not something that people can come back and say, well, you put the survey together, you administered the survey, and so your results can be tainted. So it's a very independent gauge for us. So as we embarked upon the Premier Customer Experience, or PCE as we call it internally, one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that we were listening to the voice of our customers. And so we have a number of different ways to do that, from social media to our customer relations department, which receives all of the complaints that may come in from the Better Business Bureau and from our public commission, as well as executive complaints. Our call center, we record every call, and so hearing what customers have to say when they call us. These were all different ways that we could get that voice of the customer to understand exactly what the customer was looking for, but also what were the pain points that they were experiencing, because those were things that we really wanted to focus on. In addition to talking with our customers, we also did a number of focus groups internally. We did over 30 focus groups with our employees to say, you know, what are the things that we do for the customers? What do these jobs entail? What are our values as a company? And then what experience do we think that we're providing to the customer? And it was very telling, because the employees, they felt that there was a lot of things that we could do better. And they weren't shy with sharing that information, as I'm sure you guys may have experienced in your own jobs. And so being able to take the feedback from our employees and marry it with the feedback from our customers, we really were able to start to put together initiatives that we wanted to work to, or that we needed to work, I should say, in order to enhance that customer experience. One of the other things that we started to recognize was that the customers did not interact with us in the same way that we interacted internally. And so what that means is, while we have our billing department, our customer service department, maybe our meter reading department, and each one of those departments, you know, may have their independent processes, for the customer, it's more about a journey. So it's about them starting service. It's about them paying their bill, or receiving their bill. And so when we kind of flip the coin around to look at it from the customer perspective, we realized that we needed to set up journey teams. And so what you see here is what we call our journey wheel. And we have 6 journeys within ComEd. The first one is start and welcome. So, of course, when the customer is either moving into our territory or when the customer may be changing from one premise to another. The next journey is use, and this really encompasses kind of anything that the customer has to do as they are using our service, with the exception of things like billing and pay, which lives in its own journey because it's such a large portion of what customers have to do with us on a month-to-month basis. And then our service inquiries and issues, where this is looked at as when the customer contacts us for appointments or if they have an outage or some type of work order that they need worked. That falls into that category. And then we have our stop category. So again, this is if customers are either moving out of our territory or if they're changing from one premise to another. One of the things that we did this year with our journey teams was really started to develop journey maps because we wanted to understand what are those true pain points and joy points within the different journeys for our customers, and how do the journeys intersect, because there are some things that, like stop and start, for instance, those 2 journeys may intersect if a customer is just moving from one premise to another within the ComEd service territory. And so we wanted to understand what that experience is like. And then our 6th journey team, we call it Learn About ComEd. And this is a journey team that really spans all of the journeys and lasts throughout the time a customer is either a customer of ComEd, if they are not a customer but they maybe are a stakeholder, if they are agencies that we interact with, all of that falls within the Learn About ComEd journey team. And that team is made up of groups like our communications team, our marketing folks. We have people from distribution ops, from customer operations, all having a voice in how our customers are going to learn about what services we offer and the things that we provide to them, the value that we bring to their lives. And finally, one of the things that I want to note about our journey wheel is in between each of the journeys, they don't just live separately and distinctly, but perceptions are being shaped as the customer moves from one journey to another. And it's also not just a linear path, so they're not going to go from start to use to billing and pay and service inquiries and then stop, but they'll move back and forth between the journeys depending on what's happening within their life. And so we wanted to really make sure that we recognize that. As we put our PCE plan together initially, one of the other things that we wanted to recognize is just all of our internal touch points that have to happen when a customer is doing business with us. So what this slide represents is just a hodgepodge of, we call it a spider web of the ways that customers interact with us and all the different touch points that they may have with us. And this by no means is wholly representative of that customer experience, but it just started to give us a visual diagram of these are the ways that customers come in to interact with us. Here's all the different ways that they may have to go back and forth moving between our systems and our departments to accomplish their goals. So one of the next things that we developed in the PCE setup roadmap is an impact assessment tool, because we recognize that there were going to be a lot of ideas that came up and a lot of things that we wanted to go after. But unfortunately, we don't have unlimited resources. We don't have unlimited time. We don't have unlimited money. And so we needed a way to prioritize what initiatives we would work when. We also wanted a way to kind of forecast and predict what was going to be the impact on J.D. Power, what was going to be the impact on our performance and service level metrics, what would be the impact on the cost to the company, as well as the impact to the different customer journeys that I spoke about and the customer channels. And so we developed this tool internally. We call it our impact assessment tool, and it really strategically starts to have the project owner think through their project and those impacts. So on the very first tab, what they'll see is kind of an overview of all of the different components of that impact assessment, and they'll get instructions about how to walk through it. that very first tab looks at J.D. Power, and it dissects the 40 questions, 40 or some odd questions that are within J.D. Power that make up our score. And what we do is we look at what was our latest J.D. Power score, what did it take to get us to first quartile, and then what the gap is between where we are and where we want to be. And then we allow the project owner to think through each question and say, what impact is my project going to have on that question within J.D. Power? So, for instance, if we're working on an outage project, and one of the questions within J.D. Power is, helping to keep you informed about an outage, we think about the communications components of our project and say, will this keep the customer more informed about their outage? Will they get their restoration time and get updates throughout the life of their outage? If they will, depending on how impactful we think or how robust the project scope may be, we'll determine what degree that's going to close the gap in J.D. Power from our current standing to first quartile, and we'll rank it. Now, this is a bit subjective, so one of the things that we do is to try to make sure that we're not just having people kind of operate independently to fill out this impact score, is we have them partner with someone. And so they'll really start to be able to bounce their analysis off of one another and challenge each other to say, do we really think it's going to have this big of an impact, or I think we're underestimating how big this can be for our customer. And then within our PCE teams, we then can look at those assessments and challenge them as well. And as the project starts to unfold, we ask the teams to go back and redo their analysis. So as the scope may change, as the timeline may change, they'll get to go back and say, let's reassess it and make sure that we're still on the right path. So that's the first part of the assessment. The other part that they'll walk through are our CSAT, our service performance levels, the cost to achieve the desired goal and the desired impact on the customer. And as they do that, we start to see a model that ranks as the customer service goes up, as the customer satisfaction goes up, the costs also go up, or maybe the costs decrease. And as these models start to shift, we can really start to prioritize. This is a project that's going to have a huge customer satisfaction impact. Maybe it's a low cost and low risk to the business. Maybe it's a great strategic fit, and so we'll go after that project and put it on our roadmap. I talked a little bit about the journey teams, and so one of the things that we did when we set up those journey teams is we assigned owners. So each of the vice presidents within our customer operations group owns one of the journey teams, and then we have two directors within customer operations that also lead a journey team. But then those journey teams are filled with people from across the organization. So not just customer operations, but you have your distribution operations, transmission, construction and maintenance, external affairs, large customer service, communications, marketing. All of these teams have representation on the different journey teams. And what that does is it allows us to have different voices and different advocates for the customer in the room. Those journey teams are really meant to be kind of the protector of the customer's viewpoint. So as initiatives are developed, they're brought to the journey team, and the journey team can then say, you know what, this is something that we think is going to do harm to our customers, or no, we think this is something that will really help. Because one of the things that we want to make sure that we do as we develop more initiatives is that we're not breaking processes that work very well or taking something away that's very beneficial to the customer, but we also don't want to put things in place that are going to harm the customer. What we found is as we do that, one, we get more and more initiatives coming up to the surface that we're finding out about, but it also gives us a chance to mitigate any risk. So one example is we had an initiative that came through from our regulatory group, and we found out about it kind of late after we had already agreed to go down that path with our commission and with our legal departments. And so once the journey teams found out about the project, they were able to step in and say, understand that we have to go down this path and that it may potentially not be seen as customer friendly. How can we start to mitigate those risks? How can we proactively communicate to the customer and let them know this is coming, answer any questions they may have, and figure out if there are any nuances that we can change about the project that's not going to have a huge impact to the scope of the project, but that may just make it a little more customer friendly. So I mentioned J.D. Power is one of the main objectives for us to improve upon, and so we've really started to see over the past 2 years some great growth within J.D. Power in that Midwest large segment. Power quality and reliability is the largest segment within J.D. Power, and it's one of our big focuses, especially going into 2015. We want to make sure that from an outage communication standpoint and from a reliability communication standpoint, that we have some robust initiatives in place to address the customer's concerns. So when we talk about the roadmap for PCE, I mentioned how we talked with our customers, we talked with our employees, we put the journey teams in place, and we really started to do analysis. Out of that initial roadmap, there were about 107 improvements that we came up with. And then we started to do the screening. So we eliminated 6. We had about 38 initiatives that were similar to one another, so we were able to combine them. And in total, we had 65 initiatives plotted on the roadmap. 53 of those we were able to run through that impact assessment tool that I talked about, and about 12 of them didn't require that type of documentation. So things like setting up the journey teams or different initiatives that were already underway and close to completion didn't have to go through that model. What you see here is the initial roadmap from 2012. So what we started to do was plot each of those initiatives, understand what the impact assessment was going to be, so we could see what the lift would be to get us towards that first quartile with the goal of reaching first quartile in 2016. And so we have categories across performance management, our customer-focused culture, our business processes and operating model, technology, and then reputation management and communications. So again, this is our initial view. Here is our completed view up through 2014 to date. So we've had well over 50 initiatives completed so far over the past 2 years. And we've seen growth in J.D. Power going from that 579 that I talked about originally to our latest score in 2014 of 627. So we've seen about a 48-point increase. As we start planning 2015, we have a number of initiatives lined up. A lot are underway. We have a lot that are yet to be started. So we have a lot going on to really impact the customer and drive towards our North Star. So I talked a little bit about our current J.D. Power standing. So we're at 627. We've only moved up one spot, so we went from 16 to 15 within J.D. Power. And normally you'd say, well, that's not a huge deal. That's not a lot. But when we think about what it took to get there, to move those 48 points, and from where we were in 2012, that was big. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that came from our employees to move that mark. And we're seeing great indicators in just the Wave 1 data from J.D. Power in 2015 that we're moving in even further. Of course, our challenge is all the other utilities are moving up as well. And so we can't be stagnant or we can't be complacent in what we're doing. We also understand that we're kind of trying to hit a moving target. So that Midwest large average, that moves each wave as well as first quartile moves. And so we're really trying to take a step back right now and say, how do we make sure that even with that moving target, we're going to be able to hit first quartile? We do a lot of forecasting and we do a lot of calibration. And so right now, in preparation for 2015, we're trying to recalibrate our forecasting to understand what our expected lift is over the next 1.5 to 2 years. And that's what this chart really shows for us. So we see, kind of wave over wave how we've performed, and then we start to see with the initiatives that are going to be put in place, with wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, and so forth, what do we expect that growth to be overall within J.D. Power? And then, of course, at the end of the year, they average the 4 waves. So that's why you see a little bit of a dip when you come down to your overall 2015 and 2016 forecasted numbers. So overall, there's a lot happening within ComEd towards the premier, creating that premier customer experience. We've really seen a lot of great growth moving from that historical meter-to-market view to a more robust circular view of our customer, and making sure that we can really drive towards treating every customer and every interaction in the same manner that they would expect to be treated. So that concludes my presentation. I believe we can open it up for questions.
Absolutely. Great presentation. Thank you for that. I do have a few questions that we have generated during your presentation. The first question that I have for you is, what would you say is the known gap in the customer experience plan?
Great question. Thanks, John. So I would say we have a lot of things happening internally for our customers. Excuse me, and we have a lot of things that are going to touch the customer. I think one of our challenges is how do we really make sure that the customer on a global level feels those changes that are happening. And so really starting to put together a robust marketing and communications plan to let the customer know that, hey, we are actually focused on the premier customer experience. And while we may not, externally put out a billboard or put out a radio spot that says, hey, ComEd's doing, this Premier Customer Experience Initiative and it's all about you, we do really want to take into account our branding and our communication strategy to show the customer we're developing online tools, we're developing new processes, we're changing the way that we interact with our customer because we want your voice in each and every one of the programs that we put forth. So I'd say the external communication piece is one of our gaps that we're working to fill over 2015.
Very good. Makes sense. Okay, following up, what are you doing to increase engagement internally?
So internally, that's a challenge for us. When you have a 100-year-old company, you get a lot of people that say, you know what, it's worked this way for us for so far. We don't have competition in our market. We're the distribution company, so our customers can't go anywhere. So why do we have to focus on them? Why is this so important? So one of the things that we developed this year was we started doing employee road shows. We put together a team of people, and we are going to every single ComEd location across our territory to talk with our employees and say, hey, this is why we have to focus on our customer. Our customers and our relationship with those customers is one of the greatest gifts that we have. And right now, being in a regulated utility, we have that relationship, but it might not always be that way. And so we try to talk with the employees and help them understand not only why they need to focus on the customer, but we show them some of the initiatives that may be underway where departments across the company are coming together towards a common goal. So we give them examples, like our outage communications project. We give them examples like some of the online tools that we're developing so that they see what that cross-collaboration looks like. And then we give them some key takeaways, things that they should think about as they're interacting with the customer on a daily basis. We try to show them ways that they can truly own that customer experience, and we try to make it very simple for them so that it doesn't feel overwhelming. One of the things I always tell the employees is, my dad taught me the way that you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And so we don't expect them to move the mountain all at once, but just take one simple step each day and commit to one thing each day that they can do to enhance that customer experience. So the road shows is one piece. We've also started having a routine drumbeat of communications coming out that talk about the customer experience. So we developed a quarterly progress report so that employees are kept up to date about what's actually happening with our initiatives. We have in our internal publication, our internal newsletter, steady articles that come out about Premier Customer Experience. We actually, in our e-channels and social media team, developed a newsletter that we call the toilet paper, and it actually goes up on the back of each of the stalls within the bathrooms of our office buildings. But in that newsletter, we give a Premier Customer Experience article, either an update about initiatives, standing on where we are within our different metrics that we're trying to achieve, or something like that, so that we just have we're gaining momentum with our employees so that they understand what's happening. We're also trying to pull employees into more focus groups with the customers and more collaborative designs for projects. So one of the projects that we launched earlier this year was a newly redesigned bill. And that was one of the first times that we really worked with the customer hand in hand to say, we're going to redesign this bill, but we want it to be a bill that you want to see. Despite the fact that you still have to pay the bill, we want to make it as visually appealing, and we want to provide the information that you need to manage your electric usage. And so we got feedback from the customers through social media. We did online surveys. We developed a bill builder tool, and we did other crowdsourcing with designers to design that bill. So we want to implement strategies like that moving forward so our employees are really sitting down with customers and designing the processes moving forward. So those are just a few of the things that we're doing to have that internal engagement increase with our employees.
Okay. Next question is a great question. Can you share a couple of your top focus areas for the coming year to improve your customer satisfaction?
Sure, excuse me. So I would say as we looked at J.D. Power and as we looked at some of our biggest opportunities, we've kind of focused on three things for the coming year or two. The first one is around power quality and reliability. We want to make sure that customers know and can see the improvements that are being made from an outage perspective. So if they do have an outage, we want to make sure they have as much communication about that outage as possible, and preferably proactive communication so that the customer doesn't have to hunt us down to find out when are my lights coming back on. The other piece is we're making significant investments into our grid right now. We're installing smart meters, and we're doing a lot of infrastructure upgrades. So we want to make sure customers understand if they've had trouble with their reliability, here's where they are on the roadmap towards improvement. Here are the things that have been put in place so far, and here are the things that are coming up so that they understand they're just not operating, excuse the pun, in the dark. But they know that we recognize that they may be having trouble and that we're actively working to fix that. And a lot of that happens around communications. And so as we look at our communications, we recognize we do a lot for our customers, but we're pretty humble when it comes to talking about the great work that we do. And so without feeling like we're going to just toot our horn all the time, we do want to make sure that customers are very informed about the options that are available to them and that they know what's happening. And again, we want to do this proactively versus waiting on the customer to call us or to inquire about what's happening. So communications across the board is a huge focus area. And then I'd say the other one is corporate citizenship. So again, we do a lot for our communities. We do a lot of volunteering. We do a lot of kind of joint projects within the community. We have a lot of energy efficiency programs, but our customers don't always know and they don't always associate what's happening in their community with ComEd. We also see an opportunity to be more hyper-local with our work that we do. So getting further down into the community where our constituents, our customers kind of see and touch and can feel us on a more regular basis. So power quality and reliability, communications, and corporate citizenship. I'd say those are our three big focus areas from a customer satisfaction standpoint. And then, as I mentioned in the previous question, internal engagement is another huge focus area for us over the coming year.
Well, very good. I want to thank you, Diana, for putting together an excellent presentation and informing us today. One quick note, I want to make everyone aware that our award submissions for the Expanding Excellence Awards is now open. Go to our web address. It's csweek.org/web/awards. I would encourage you to submit for an award. Again, I want to thank Diana for her time, and I want to thank all our attendees for spending time with us today. And I hope you have a great day, and I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. This concludes our webinar.